Welcome, everyone, to the Municipality of Municipality of Anchorage Board of Ethics meeting. This is a special meeting, July 14 at 12:30. My understanding, proper notice has been given for today's meeting. So let's do a roll call. Who all is here?
Kathleen King.
Here.
Terry Kelly.
Here.
David Nesbitt.
Here.
Keith Silver.
Here.
Also in attendance is Dee Ennis, Deputy Municipal Attorney, Glenda Regnar, Administrative Hearing Officer, and myself, Amy Solberg, Clerk Staff Support. You have a quorum.
All right, can we approve the agenda? What I propose doing is we have two advisory opinions that we'd like to finalize today. One is confidential, one is not. Then we have a couple of small matters that I think we can push to the end and deal with them rather quickly, I hope. So, do we have any objection to approving the agenda?
No objection.
Hearing no objection, the agenda is approved. So, any reason why we can't jump right into? I tell you what. Do we have a preference on which one we tackle first, 3 or 4?
Not by me.
Actually, out of deference to our public member, do you want to do 4 first because that's not confidential?
We can do 4 first.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
second one is confidential.
Okay.
So the number of 2015-3 is confidential.
So we're taking this a little out of order, but we'll do 4B first, which is Advisory Opinion 2014-4. The confidentiality has been waived. Mr. Kelly, want to give us an update on your draft?
Well, so what I did was I took the most recent draft, introduced it with an exec, something like, and we don't have to call it that, but an executive summary. That was Tim's idea. That so just give people a sense of what the issue is really about, and a quick sort of almost like you might get the ruling in the beginning of a court opinion, what we actually held. Then the middle sections remained mostly the same. Just took a little bit of the sort of historical analysis out, because in some sense with the historical analysis, to me when I read it, being very familiar with the issue, I read that a lot of those, I'm just like, yeah, boy, it really shows that this is a real rat's nest. But for a member of the public reading where we're going with our decision, I didn't think that was necessarily helpful. So I just trimmed a little bit of that. We had talked last time about including 2 quotes from the resolution, and that's on page 2 to give examples of what we thought went wrong with that particular resolution. I think we should include that resolution as an appendix or as an attachment to this opinion. And then I combined 2 different paragraphs. There were 2, at least the last version I had 2 different paragraphs that said pretty much the same thing, namely that we found this section of the code confusing and we're recommending a rewrite. And so I just included that sort of at the end as a final note.
Did you put this in here? This little bullet?
I did not put that in there.
Oh,
It may have been there, or Lisa may have put it in when she was
formatting?
Format. She did a great job of formatting. Dee, you missed it. I was telling everyone that this document's been worked over so many times. The
Yeah.
formatting was crazy. It was like you made one change and like chunk, like half the document would no longer be sort of like margin adjusted.
Sometimes I have to go put the format view so that I can see and then fix it.
Even then.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I did not add it, though that question was there. That question was there, and it was the opening of the discussion of the document that I got.
Have you had a chance to review this, Dee?
I haven't.
Okay. Why don't we just take a minute and read this? Has everybody had a chance to read it? Let's just take a look.
This is a brand new, isn't it?
It's pretty much the
That's
document.
today,
I would
Okay.
call it
Yeah.
85 to 90% of the
Yeah.
document that you
Okay.
have made.
Yeah.
Make an edit, please. Second paragraph, second page, small thing, but it's, it should be is 2 verses to 1.
Yes. Do you see that?
It's about 2/3 of the way down that second paragraph.
Ah, yeah, right.
And at the top of that paragraph, there's a formatting issue after the first
Oh,
sentence.
as should be at the end of day. Yeah.
And then unsupported is 1 word, and you've got some weird spacing in there.
Well, no, this is the thing. Yeah, I mean the
Yeah, there's lots
formatting
of
sort of.
spacing that's off.
And you notice the spacing remains, so the spacing's messed up, almost as if you have it, the margins squared off, and so I unsquared them, sort of,
Yeah.
but the spacing didn't change, and so
Yeah.
to some degree, I'm not entirely sure what happened here. Okay, so we got the should be, and then what was at the top? The
Well, there should be, you have a return, it's like
See right
after
here.
day.
See how odd?
Oh,
that is?
yeah, right, yeah, that's,
There's spacing issues.
yeah, and then there's funny things, like, you notice how, like, when it says, like, Black's Law Dictionary defines, it looks to me like the font changed a little bit, but I went through and I had, it said it was all the same font, and, but,
Smaller.
yeah.
Mhm.
It may be telling you that your version of Word is going out of, you gotta pay or update on.
Yeah, that would be surprising, yeah, I wouldn't.
Down there where it says after somebody opposes, it's, you got OP and then space P.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, you see, that's
That's an issue, I think that's what we're talking
that's
about.
a space, it's
What do you
not one of
think,
the
Dee?
spacing issues, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the executive summary.
I think that's very helpful. Hmm.
So basically, Terry, we're saying that, let's see, they have a right to, the assembly has a right to state their opinions, even if they're partisan, but there should not be municipal resources used for those, for partisan purposes.
Well, so,
So it's-
so here's the logic that I settled on, was that
But it-
the balancing act is between, you know, the right of the assembly to express itself and the prohibition of using municipal resources to be partisan. The one thing that I did as I just sort of tightened up the logic, if you look in the middle of the second full paragraph on page 2, such expression is part of the assembly customary and usual duties. However, they're also forbidden to knowingly permit municipal employees in the department to actively campaign, da, da, da. And then the next sentence, because it would require the preparation and distribution on the part of municipal employees, municipal clerk's office, the expression of the assembly's opinion in the resolution should avoid being polemical. And so what I wound up doing is, and this is what I thought was our discussion, was that the assembly can't really do something like pass a resolution without utilizing the labor and work of employees. Those employees are not allowed to actually prepare and distribute work that is partisan. So then the weight comes down on what do you mean by partisan, and what I decided was, if you look at the top of the first full paragraph on page 2, I put an emphasis on strong supporter of party, cause, or person. And so the way I'm reading that is, it is okay to support a cause or a person, so it's okay to take a particular stance. If you begin taking that stance in a polemical way, you become a strong or extreme supporter of that stance, and then you become partisan. So basically what I wound up doing was saying, in this particular case, partisan means being something like polemical. And that you can take a stand, the assembly may take a stand on a particular issue, even if it's a controversial stand, but it has to do so in a way that is nonpartisan, in a way that's non-polemical.
And actually, to back it up, their resolution did pass with didn't it pass 11-0?
It did, but there was quite a bit of debate about the appropriateness of them even bringing that resolution. The public wasn't very pleased with it, interestingly enough, and a couple members as well. Was this really an appropriate use of the assembly at all? Having said that, they have taken positions on many things.
Well, and again, the discussion that we had, as I recall, was that the assembly has to be, or at least should, as a matter of being the democratic body of the city of Anchorage, should be able to tell the public, this is where we as a body stand on this issue. What we gave us heartburn was that when you start telling voters, and we urge you to vote in a particular way, or, the children are going to take this stuff, and they're going to, then it starts becoming, you're not just telling us where you stand, which is a valuable thing for citizens to know, but you're now sort of exhorting us and being polemical, and you're not just presenting the facts and the things that are shaping your view, but you're starting to present sort of speculative predictions and things like that.
Trying to influence the election.
Well, that's right. Either way, you're going to influence it, but there's influencing, and then there's sort of like saying, this is where, FYI, citizens, this is where we stand, and here's why. And then there's, you ought to vote in this way, and we're really going to lay on the polemics to get you there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does some sidestepping, that, you know, it does do that partisan becomes polemical.
Right.
Polemical. But I guess part of our reason we're having so much trouble with this opinion in the 3 to 4 before it is because the code section is so poorly written.
Right.
And being that hopefully this will be one of the first things that goes in the next round, I'm not sure we can make more sense of this, because I think everybody has acknowledged that the resolution was partisan, and it probably therefore did violate the employee section, and you've got that in here. The little bit of history part of that little bit of history, which did say that, however, that really wasn't meant to apply to assembly people.
Oh, yeah, the legislative history.
See, because maybe, I guess, when you start with this section in the middle of the first page, and you say, administrative divisions shall not actively campaign, prepare, publish, or distribute partisan nature.
Right.
That doesn't say resources right there. And why doesn't that apply to the assembly here? Right, so you're already acknowledging sort of the tieback provision. You're saying, well,
That's right.
we know
Yeah.
it's in. So, but maybe.
'Cause the next
So, do
section
we
it says,
need
right?
that one little paragraph about history, saying this hasn't been traditionally applied to the assembly members themselves. So I see you saying you.
I just tried to make the connection more quickly. We have a big debate about it, and we understand
Yeah.
that there's a long sort of like circuit in the code that could have like links that kind of like
Right.
it's the backdoor problem.
Yeah,
right?
we don't want to get through
But for
all
the
of that.
public, I just want him to move more quickly. It's like employees are not allowed to do X, and elected officials are not allowed to knowingly let employees do X. Done. So in a certain way, elected officials, when they need city resources or when they have to get city employees to do things, they too are limited. And just to try, it makes it, I will admit, it sort of simplifies the connection, but I think for a member of the public, they would get it. They would say, oh, okay, I see it. Whereas we know, because the one section of the code is like 15 pages after the other section of the code. For us, it's a more complicated matter.
I would, considering that, I would not want to work in the clerk's office and be told to do something by assembly member or the chair of the assembly and say, do this and go like this is partisan. If they make their own decision. Shy of something that gives a little bit of background. Because both of them could be brought up for notice of potential violation. I don't
That's
know
right.
that your work,
That's right.
I don't know if a work in the clerk's office doing work on behalf of an assembly member would actually insulate them from a violation.
Well, that's right, and I think if you look in the final note, I kept that language I really liked, was that, there's
Yeah.
a real problem here. Even with us, even if we accepted this sort of logic that we're going to say, look, in this particular kind of scenario, partisan means polemic. So as long as it's not being polemical, then it's okay. But then you still have this question, well, what's precisely polemical, and what counts as facts-based, and what counts as sort of like,
Can
people
you
are.
give a layperson here a definition of polemic? I pretty much figured out that it's closer to one side of the argument than the other. It's polemic meaning closer to the polls as opposed to middle of the road. But
So so you might think a polemic is a very inflammatory, manipulative,
Propaganda.
deeply one-sided. Yeah, propaganda.
But one person's propaganda is another person's truth, and that's the reason I
If
asked
it can
the
be
question.
supported.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Kicker.
So
It's
polemic.
gotta be supported.
So polemic isn't the position that you wind up holding; it's the way you make the case for that position,
Right.
and you can sort of make that case by citing facts. Or again, I think is the thing you say. If you start saying like, well, if we legalize marijuana, it's going to wind up in candy edibles that children will be eating left and right, and they'll be, well, okay, now we're not.
Right.
We're not
You've gone
really.
beyond
We're
the
not
factual
making.
recitation
Which
to
is
an editorialization.
why we asked him to tone down the resolution.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so that's what a polemic is. So I think about a polemic is like the famous ones are sort of like where people just sort of like lambasting their opponents, just like personal nasty attacks or highly heated
This is a
inflammatory
paragraph too.
language.
I mean, indent.
Thanks. You sometimes use words that I don't use in everyday language.
Well, and I'm not, yeah, and polemic might not be the best word, but at least that's what
no,
I
I'm
came up
sure
with.
it's-
you know,
I'm sure
I
it's a
still-
proper word, it's
No,
just
I
that-
don't know if it's the,
I
well, it
just
might not
wanna
be the
make
best
sure.
word, because, you
We
know.
want to eliminate that
you know,
bullet,
you-
whatever that
You're a
is.
smart guy, you're hardly not going to be
discussion.
the only citizen
Yeah,
who
just start
reads
with a
this
new
and go,
paragraph.
polemic, what the hell does that mean? You know, and so, part of it is finding the right tool for the job.
And then this would go back here, right? Yeah.
But anyway, what do
Okay.
you guys think? I mean, like, you know,
I'm just fiddling with
that's
the.
that's what I thought was sort of like the logic that we had agreed upon, that this was the way we were going to see our way through this. In some sense, there's a balancing act that's got to be committed. I'm not comfortable with telling the assembly they may not speak
Right.
out as a body.
No,
on
and
these
that's not
kinds
what
of
we were.
issues.
That's not what we were saying.
At the same time, the code clearly says that people, shouldn't be, distributing and using partisan materials. And so, where's the give? And in this particular case, I thought, well, maybe the give is in what partisan means, and it can mean a lot of different things. At its most sensitive, it can mean taking a position that makes you partisan. Done, right? But when you look at the Oxford Dictionary, you can see it's not just being a supporter of a particular position, but being a strong supporter, right? So being a partisan, almost like in the French Resistance sense, right? It's like it's not just you hate the Nazis, but you're bombing them. I mean, you're going out there and you're actually engaging in warfare against them, right? And so that's sort of the idea that I had in mind. So it's okay for the assembly to say, here's where we stand, position X, and here are some factual reasons why, versus here's where we stand, and here's where you ought to stand. And you actually ought to be voting the way we want, and here are all these very highly inflammatory, politicalized, if that's a word, reasons. So does that sound like that?
I like what you've done. I mean, I have to defer to council to make sure
Glenda,
that it's.
do you have any?
No, I don't think, I think if you get too far, or too deep in the weeds, we'll lose the impact of it, for sure.
I agree.
Having a 2-page like this is, I think, very, very good, so that it's easy for them to read and hopefully understand.
Kathleen?
She wasn't here for the original.
I wasn't here.
argument.
Oh.
But your view is valuable. I mean, when I was
I know.
rewriting this, I was precisely thinking about your comment. I was saying, like, I don't understand,
Yeah.
the context here, and so you are precisely the kind of person
Right.
who should be able to read this. Go, okay, I get it.
Well, then I think we need another word for polemic. Or, I'm having difficulty seeing how a municipal, in this case, board finds that the expression of the assembly should avoid polemics, be rooted. But we're also making a ruling on whether or not municipal resources can be used. I mean, it seems to imply that, but is that, I'm just having, difficulty seeing where the entire decision is.
Well, there are two parts of
There's
this.
two parts. There's the one part whether or not they have the freedom of expression, blah, 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 and then using municipal resources. Those are the two.
I think what you're focusing in on is some of the difficulty we had with the drafting of the code in this area, because this code it's quirky the way that we have decided to interpret it, to the extent that the clerk's office, for example, as an employee, as a municipal employee, a non-elected official, cannot do certain things. Well, the assembly can't do certain things without the help of the clerk's office. So it's kind of this awkward hook that we're forced to logic through. That's a lot. We spent a lot of time kind of going around about this issue, and I think what Barry was trying to do here is, instead of get too deep into the weeds here and try to explain our way through all of that, he's just kind of simplifying that argument.
Yeah, okay.
That leap of, it's kind of a leap of logic, right? We're kind of assuming a lot of backdrop.
So the resolution that came to us, I don't know if the whole thing is in here, the
The
original
original?
one, that probably would have been a good place for you to start.
It's like the bottom line, the
Yeah,
bottom
it's-
two lines have said,
Oh.
Right.
we
Yeah.
strongly
This
urge
is
you
what
not
was
to
This
vote.
is what was actually passed, but this
I
is
did see
not
the
what
one
was
in here.
before.
Yeah,
This
this
was not the one that was floated to us and asked basically, hey, what do you guys think of this one? So the one that came before the board looked very different.
I think
Very
it's in
different.
here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the
and
question then became for us sort of twofold, was under this provision here, is it material that is partisan in nature? If no, then I guess then the inquiry stops. But if yes, then if it is material that's partisan in nature, does the Assembly's action constitute campaigning, preparing, publishing, broadcasting, or distributing that partisan material? And so then that's where all of the municipal resources and the Assembly resources came into the question was, they really can't do anything without all the other components. And then, yes, we found it was partisan. And then if they did take action on it, it would fall within the other part. So that was sort of a really like hyper abbreviated.
Because we spent a lot of time kind of
Yes,
debating
a
this.
lot.
And this is a really a real effort on a lot of people's part to kind of simplify it down, to keep this readable to them and understandable, and hopefully moot soon. Hopefully that we'll be able to work something out so that this won't be a lasting decision that people will have to rely on for years to come for precedent. Anything else? I interrupted you a couple times.
Oh, no, I just, you had mentioned that bullet point, and that actually is part of Glenda's, but I can see taking it out because it stands out and it directs it to just the idea of partisanship, and then you really get away from that very quickly. You sort of throw in partisanship and then you move to polemic. So
What are we talking about?
David thought that this was just an error, the little bullet point, but that was from your draft.
No, what is that?
She would use different bullet.
I would have used a different one. I don't
Okay.
remember drafting that, but it's possible.
Yeah, but at any rate, I think, go ahead and take that out. I think that's, because it also directs too much attention to the word partisan.
Are you
and
suggesting
where-
take the whole sentence out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fine. with
just
me.
our discussion.
Yeah.
Well, I saw you you just thought, I assumed it was an error.
I
gonna
was
say,
fiddling with
it.
it,
actually
yeah.
wasn't an earlier draft, but I agree with you that it puts too much attention at the word partisan.
How's this look for everyone? Are we ready to?
I suppose we could replace the word polemic. How about with prolific?
Oh, come on.
That's even
man,
better.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Better. Are we getting back to the Philippines?
Well, I think that's right. I think
Do we
that's
want
good.
it? I mean,
so
I'm
your,
not-
your choices are diatribe, invective, rant. That's a good, that might not be good for
The
this.
assembly,
Right?
yeah.
Somebody might find it funny.
But
But when
rant
you
is
want to
an
explain to
idea.
someone what a polemic is, rant is a good way. Like
Okay.
you're not really arguing in any kind of rational way anymore. You're just sort of grinding away. Broadside, attack, harangue.
Harangue.
I like that one. Would be great.
Yeah.
What's the
Do it-
adjectival form of that? Harangue.
Well, understanding what the word means, it sounds like it's the proper word. It's not something
Or
you
you
use
could
every
just
day,
footnote
so.
it or something and put a definition or some suggestions of other words that might fill in. It would give
Some
the reader a
synonyms.
clue. as to-
We can do some.
Yeah.
We can do a footnote with some synonyms in
Yeah.
it. I can
Like
leave it.
prolific. That's what we should use a footnote. A polemic is a prolific form of communication.
Using a sentence. All right. I'm comfortable handing this back and finalizing this document and signing it. Is everybody else? Okay. So.
Should my name be taken off since I wasn't there?
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be on the hook for this.
No.
for this mess.
But 3 is enough, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we've got the 3.
So take Kathleen off, and then. So do we have a motion to accept this letter? And it's finalized.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Good. So we'll pass this through to the clerk's office.
Wow. You got it done.
And in the clerk's office, I'll trust them to make these changes. These are mostly semantic changes. And then I'll sign it. Gosh, I'll probably stop by and just sign it whenever. Just let me know when it's done, and I'll come by and sign it.
Okay.
All right. So now let's move then to 4A, which is a confidential request for advisory
That's pretty much it.
opinion.
Are we going to address this?
Yeah, I'd rather do it at the end and to get to the unfinished business first.
Do you want to make the motion for executive?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any objection going into executive session? No. Okay.